This is Renee Romeo. This video will show you how to shape and cover this beautiful cabbage rose cake with just a little bit of fondant and some buttercream frosting, and you're ready to go. So please join me step by step and I'll show you exactly how to do it. I've made two 8-inch cakes and I have them frozen. I froze them and then I went ahead and I filled each layer in between with a mixture of buttercream. Now this time of year is a little warm, so I use my warm buttercream mixture, and I'll have that on my website as well that you can access. So from this point I'm going to take a bread knife and I need to create the shape for the cake, which is actually like a dome. And the best way to do this is when it's frozen. So I've just taken it right out of the freezer and I'm just going to go ahead and make that dome shape. And it does get a little bit messy, so don't worry about that. So what I'm going to do is just go ahead and make the dome, and then I'm going to clean up the sides and make them nice and straight. I'm in the process of putting buttercream over the top of the cake, and basically this is just a pretty thin coat that goes on here. If you do anything that's really thick, you're going to wind up getting some bubbles and bulges underneath that fondant that you're going to put on, and you won't get a nice finish over the top. So go ahead and cover everything with this buttercream. I'm just doing this with a little knife right now, and then I'm going to come in with a larger knife and really smooth things out all along the larger knife, and I'm just going to go ahead and drag it along the edge to make it nice and even all the way around. Now it doesn't need to be perfect at this point. You're just looking for a nice smooth surface, and then you can go back and fill in any of the areas that are left void with extra buttercream. So get it as smooth as you can. Okay, this is as good as you're going to get your buttercream icing on your cake. So the next thing we're going to do, I have some fondant, a big pile of it, and I'm going for this teal color. So the teal color, I'm going to try some paste coloring, and basically it's a 1-to-1 with blue and green. So this is a cornflower blue, and I'm just going to take a toothpick and add it right on top of the fondant. And then I'll take a leaf green and try to get about the same amount and add that to the top of the fondant. And then basically you're just going to take this and keep kneading it one on top of each other, so that way you can get this all incorporated and get this teal color that I'm looking for. I have the fondant, it's nice and cool, so I'm going to go ahead and put cornstarch down on my surface where I'm going to roll. So I just go ahead and place that in the center, and then I take a nice straight rolling pin, and that's what I'm going to use to flatten this entire circle out to 1/8 of an inch thick. And basically the measurement is from the bottom of the cake to the top of the cake and then back to the other side. So it needs to be quite a large circle by the time I'm done with it. And this nice straight rolling pin will help you get that really smooth surface. Now don't worry about the cornstarch on the bottom, even if it discolors the underneath portion of this, you're not going to see it. So as long as the top remains unscathed by the cornstarch, you'll have a perfectly teal blue cake. So I've taken some plastic wrap and I've put it on the bottom half of the fondant that's been rolled. And so what I'm going to do at this point is I'll take the cake and I will move the fondant over onto the cake. And so basically the way I do that, I'm just going to fold this back, move the cake into position, and then I can lift this up from the center and get it centered onto the cake, and then lift it over the top like so. So this is what you wind up with, kind of like this little mushroomy looking thing. So from this point, what we're going to do, there's a smoothing tool, looks like this, little tiny ironing board type thing. I'm just going to move this a little bit closer, and it's just to smooth this out down to the bottom. And sometimes these round cakes are a little bit more difficult to deal with than, let's say, a square cake. So you do have to finesse this fondant a little bit to get it to lay nice and flat. And you'll kind of just see, at this point, I'm just kind of patting it down as I go. And getting this to kind of lay into the buttercream as best I can at this point. I wanted you to see that this is not perfect. You don't need to get it perfect. Sometimes the imperfections can work in your favor when you're decorating. So since we're doing scrolls and things like that over the top of it, we're not going to worry how this looks quite right now. And you shouldn't worry about yours either. If you're doing the same kind of design, it's really, really forgiving, especially for a novice. Okay, now that's nice and trimmed. I'm going to clean it up and then start decorating. So to start the very center of the flower, I have this little piece of wire attached to a little piece of, I guess it's an egg-shaped form. And this is for cake decorating, and basically this is going to form the center of that large flower. So I've rolled out my fondant pretty thin, and I've cut out 3 different shapes. And so the 3 different shapes, smaller, medium, and large, they're going to be wrapped around this little piece. So I'm taking a little brush and I'm wetting this little egg, and I'm also wetting the very inside of this first smallest piece. From that point, what I can do is I can take my little ball roller and I'm just going to fan out the edge on this first piece a little bit and just thin it out and make it look like an actual petal. And then I can take a piece of sponge and fan it out even more. And then I'll take this and I'll apply it directly to the egg. So you'll see that's what I wind up with. Now the next one, I'm going to do the same thing. I'll take that crescent shape and I'll just fan out the edges a little bit. Till I get something that looks a little ragged. I kind of like that look. And then again, taking my water. Now this helps it stick. So this is going to go over, you see that opening? We're going to go straight over the top of that. Kind of close this up just a little bit. So then you'll get something that looks like that. Once you get 3 or 4 petals in here, you can insert this into the very top of the cake. So just go ahead and press that in place. All right, now I want mine sticking up this far because this needs to be a big giant flower. So the subsequent petals that I put on here are now I'm starting to colorize this, and you'll see I'm not a big fan of having everything nice and curvy. In nature, things don't occur that way, so I leave mine pretty frazzled around the ends. So I have some powder colorant, and this basically is a pink. And so I've started colorizing the tips of this flower, and you'll see it's really pretty vibrant when you put it on, and I'm not very neat about it because, again, things aren't neat in nature. And I have a little tiny sponge, and basically what I'm going to do is just take this powder and just rub it into the edges here. I do want this to be pretty vibrant because I think it's a nice vibrant cake, happy cake. So you're just going to rub that into the edges, and you're going to keep the white in the middle. And so from this point, you can take your brush and you can wet the lower edge here again so it'll stick to the other piece of flour, and then you can put that on and keep rolling and overlapping as you. It's like a crescent, and I'm just going to overlap the previous piece. me turn this for you and just see what's happening here. Now this is perfectly fine because you want this to be nice and sturdy. And then when you're coming across areas like this, you know, you can manipulate them really well, and just to try to get that to look as realistic as possible. When you get to this size rose, you really need to start thinking about wrapping it up and making sure that you don't go beyond anything that's in this perimeter. So basically I have the fondant rolled out, and I'm just going to cut this in half because I know the height of my flower is that tall, and so basically that's half of this. So I'll go ahead and cut that, and then I can get my next 2 petals, and I probably have about 6 to 8 more petals to go before this is nice and full and I can put leaves. Okay, so here's another technique for colorizing the edges of the petals. You simply dip this sponge into the powder, and then you can just rub it in here and there. And I wouldn't get it too even. And then you can wet your edges again. Now, depending on how far up this petal needs to be, if you want it to flop over, don't go up so high with your water because it's going to act like glue. And then basically I'm just going to come in here. Let's see, I'll come in here. Here's the last ending point, and I'll come in here just before that. Put this next petal in place. Turn it. And stick it in. Oops. I really want that to be flapping over at this point, so it's doing exactly what it should. Now that I've come to the last row here, you'll see this is a little bit heavy, and it's not going to stay up exactly where I want it to, so I've just taken a few pieces of paper toweling, some saran wrap, to just put underneath there until it dries temporarily, and then I can remove it and decorate underneath the flower, and that might take about 15 minutes. While the rose is drying, I'm just going to take this cookie cutter, and I'm going to cut out some leaves to place underneath that rose. And so basically it's rolled out about 1/8 of an inch thick, and I'm going to take a leaf and I'm going to texturize it so that it has all the veins that a normal leaf would have in nature. So you'll see, let me just peel away one of these and show you how I do this. So here is a texturizer. You can see it's got a pattern on it. And basically I'm going to take the top of the leaf and I'm just going to place it over the very center of that pattern. And you'll see there's a texture that comes out. Let me show you how I colorize it. So I still have this teal green color, and I have one of these little sponge pads, and I'm just going to just gently dip it into the powdered colorant, and you'll see just how it picks up on that pattern. So once that's done, you're going to want to dry it just a little bit before you put it onto the cake. And so I'm just going to leave it on this little form, little curved form, and it'll give this leaf a nice little uplift. So I'm starting to put this row of leaves in, and basically the way I do it, I just flip it upside down, and I get water all the way into one tip, and then I have water on about that portion of the next tip, so that when I flip it over, this tip can get inserted underneath the rose, and this little piece that I have water on can get attached to the cake. So I'm just going to lift this up. Now it's only been drying 15 minutes, so it's not completely set, which is exactly what you want. You still want it to remain a little bit pliable so that you can go ahead and put your leaves underneath. Okay, so here's the sketch of the cake that I made before I started working on it, and I'm going to make some scrolls along the sides. So basically I just have my white buttercream that I have left over from frosting the cake, and I've tinted it a brown. Now it's not exactly the dark brown that I wanted, but oh well. that's where we're at. So I'm just going to test it on my board and make sure that it's flowing properly. And then I'm just going to reference my drawing and just go along and making sure that I cover up all these little wrinkles and stuff that started as a result of putting the fondant on. So here we go. Over to a cake plate, and the very last thing I have to do is just finish the bottom. Now I could do it with buttercream, but I only have the dark brown, and quite frankly I think the cake is a little dark as it is, so I'm just going to go ahead and use more of this teal green fondant. And basically all I'm going to do, I'm going to make little balls. They have forms for these, but I think I can get them pretty even all the way across, and basically I'm just going to do the same thing I did with the leaves. So you're just going to take a little water and put it on and then just stick it in place. And I'm going to do that all along the bottom edge. Well, there you have it. It's all finished. I went ahead and I put some pearls along the bottom just to finish it up, and I have my little sprinkles that I'm going to cover along the bottom edge. Just to give it a little bit of extra pizzazz. But you see, it's just a little bit of patience. It's all it really takes to get something like this done. And you know, there's a couple little things that are wrong with it, but all in all, it's beautiful. So it really doesn't make any difference whatsoever. As long as it comes from the heart, then that's all that matters. So thanks again for watching. This is Renee Romeo.